This is Update News, weekly news and information program produced by Communication and Journalism Department students at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire.
Thank you for joining us for Update News. I'm Kristen Schell.
And I'm Dan White. Coming up, see which politicians and celebrities made campaign stops near Eau Claire.
And we will tell you where you can go to watch the results of tomorrow night's elections with each local political party. But first, with the election now one day away, candidates are making their final push. Tonight, Wisconsin will host Republican vice presidential candidate Paul Ryan in Milwaukee.
U.S. Senate candidate Tammy Baldwin will be in Madison, Wausau, Green Bay, and Greendale. Her opponent, Tommy Thompson, will be in La Crosse, Eau Claire, Wausau, and Green Bay. For the third time in 5 days, President Obama is campaigning in Wisconsin. Today, he is at the state capitol in Madison and is joined by Bruce Springsteen, who is one of many A-list public figures carrying Obama's message. The Obama campaign provided a list of 181 actors, musicians, authors, athletes, mayors, and Congress members that fit any and all demographic groups. Some of the celebrities on the list include Lady Gaga, Billie Jean King, Stevie Wonder, Samuel L. Jackson, Anne Hathaway, and Jay-Z. Obama will be traveling to Columbus, Ohio, and then Des Moines, Iowa. Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Tammy Baldwin was the last to speak before President Obama appeared at his Madison rally today. Baldwin said the difference between the candidates in her race and the presidential races is that the Democrats are fighting for the middle class while the Republicans are looking out for special interests. Baldwin appeared in Eau Claire Sunday with actor Danny DeVito and others to rally for Democrats.
Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney came to Wisconsin on Friday with a stop in West Allis. He was joined on the stage by Packer legend Bart Starr. Romney is spending the day before the election traveling to many of the battleground states. Today, Romney will be in Ohio, Florida, Virginia, and New Hampshire. National polls show the presidential race is deadlocked, but Obama holds a slight lead in the battleground states.
U.S. Senate candidate Tommy Thompson made a stop in Altoona on Saturday. Thompson called this election one that will, quote, turn this country around. The former governor also said America's best days lie ahead. Thompson said he is seeking to help reduce the unemployment number nationwide, citing the 15% underemployment number in the state of Wisconsin. Thompson spent the weekend traveling around the state with stops in Superior, La Crosse, Green Bay, West Allis, and Madison, just to name a few.
We are just one day away from the election. For many people, that means standing in line waiting to cast their ballots.
For others, it is just a regular day because they cast their ballot early through absentee voting. Updates Chia Veng is in the newsroom with the story.
Absentee voting ended on Friday this year, a little different than what it was in the 2008 election. The ending date was not the only difference for this year's election, but also the turnout on early voting. Eau Claire City officials confirmed that a little more than 5,600 people showed up for in-person absentee voting, and about 300 more mailed in ballots. City Clerk Donna Osted says that the number of absentee voters is a little lower than they were in the last elections. Osted says that ever since absentee voting requirements were changed 12 years ago, there have been more opportunities for those who aren't able to vote on Election Day.
There were limited reasons that you could request and receive an absentee ballot. That was removed, and when that requirement was removed and it was opened up to all voters, there was definitely a big jump in the number of absentee voters.
Bridget Torgerson, a working mother, says that the absentee ballot has made it a lot easier for her to vote. Torgerson says she decided to vote early because she wanted her voice to be heard even with her busy schedule.
The convenience of that factor was definitely, I think, important. That I think that early voting is strategically a good idea. Every vote counts. It's a very close election. It's going to be. And it just goes to show when they can see the numbers that every vote does count.
University of Wisconsin Eau Claire student Warren Frank says he also voted early due to convenience, but he says he wants to have a say in the future of his profession.
Me being a future teacher, I want to ensure that I will be given the tools I need to teach my future students, so just go do it, and if not for yourself, for other people.
Frank says he encourages everyone to vote.
I feel it's really important for people to vote because it's like, oh, my vote's not going to matter. It's only one one vote, but how many people say it's only one vote? So that could be thousands and thousands of people that could sway an election.
According to the Gallup poll, among likely voters, 51% of those polled picked Romney and 46% chose Obama.
The polls are set to open tomorrow at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. For more information on where you can vote, you can visit www.eauclaire.gov/city-clerks/elections.
Every election night concludes with results watching parties in every area, and this year's will be no different. Updates Devin Schuneman has details on tomorrow night's festivities here in Eau Claire.
With election campaigning coming to an end, the announcing of the elected officials calls for a celebration. Each party will be hosting its own results party tomorrow night. The Republicans will be at Fanny Hill Dinner Theater, located at 3919 Crescent Avenue. The doors will open to the public at 7 p.m. Amy Jewell, an intern with the Tommy Thompson campaign, says more than a few local Republican candidates will be in attendance.
Supposedly all the local candidates should be there. So Bernier, Petrick, Wright, Larson.
The Democrats will be having their own results watching party at the Campus Area Holiday Inn, located at 2703 Craig Road. The Eau Claire County Democratic Party's October newsletter says the watching party will be located in the North Woods Ballroom. The newsletter says doors will open at 8:30. Beverly Wickstrom, the Eau Claire County Democratic Party spokesperson, says the Democrats, like the Republicans, will also have local candidates at the event.
I know that Dana Walks, who's running for the 91st Assembly District, will be there. I believe Jeff Smith, who's running for the 93rd Assembly District, will be there. And I assume Gary King, who's running as a Democrat for District Attorney, will be there.
To find out more information about each party's location, visit their websites. The Eau Claire Democratic Party at www.eauclairedemocrats.org and the Eau Claire Republican Party at www.rpecc.com. With photographer Dan White, for Update News, I'm Devin Schuneman.
Both Republicans and Democrats are making a final push for votes. Where they get that money and how they spend it is a little different this year than in past campaigns. 2012 presidential election is on path to be the most expensive in history. According to the Center for Responsive Politics, this election will likely cost $6 billion. This is an increase of more than 11% from the 2008 election, which cost $5.4 billion. The main reason for the increase is a controversial 2010 United States Supreme Court decision known as Citizens United that ruled it was unconstitutional for the government to ban political spending by corporations, as well as labor unions and other organizations, in candidate elections. This decision has led to the formation of super PACs, which are political action committees that can raise unlimited money to support or oppose candidates as long as they don't directly coordinate with the campaigns. According to the Federal Election Commission, super PAC spending on the 2012 elections is more than $535 million. Individuals are still the highest campaign contributor, though, with more than $890 million being donated so far. John DeRozier, an Eau Claire County Board supervisor, says he has been contributing time and money to campaigns for the past 20 years.
And the reason I do that is because I support the candidates who support my values.
So far, Mitt Romney and his allies have raised the most with $784 million. They have spent $534 million. President Obama and his allies have raised $775 million and spent $606 million. The majority of the money is spent on advertising and mailings. Party payroll is also a large expense, followed by fundraising. Although DeRozier says he gains personal satisfaction from supporting candidates, there are some areas of campaign spending that he doesn't support.
I am sick and tired of getting phone calls. I just don't answer the phone. My wife doesn't answer the phone. We've had it with that.
Even though there seems to be an endless stream of phone calls, mailings, and television ads, Wisconsin still only ranks 9th in the nation in highest spending by state. The total spending in the La Crosse-Eau Claire area is more than $3 million spent on more than 6,000 television ads.
After the break, marathon runners in New York take to the streets for an additional purpose.
And an update on a crash in Eau Claire that left one man dead. Stay tuned, you're watching Update News. Forecasters are tracking another coastal storm that threatens the cleanup and recovery efforts in New York and New Jersey after the devastation of Superstorm Sandy. The nor'easter could produce strong winds and heavy rain and may hit the coast as soon as Wednesday. Buildings and trees that were weakened by Sandy are vulnerable to additional damage. The storm could also hamper efforts to restore electricity that was lost during Sandy. Power has been restored to nearly 80% of customers in New York, but there are still many challenges yet to overcome. With gas scarce and many subway lines still out, commuters endured long waits and crowded trains today. Although repair crews have been working around the clock in response to the worst natural disaster in the transit system's 108-year history, it is unknown when New Yorkers' commutes will be back to normal.
Despite all the relief efforts, no amount could bring the East Coast back to normal before the elections. The nor'easter and the aftermath of the superstorm may give voters in New York counties an extra day to cast ballots if enough citizens are prevented from voting. In New Jersey, Governor Chris Christie ordered early voting sites to extend their hours through the weekend. He also called for election officials to allow displaced voters to cast their ballots via email or fax. This is the first time civilians in the state have been allowed to vote remotely. With all of the obstacles concerning the elections at the moment, these added stresses seem unlikely to end by tomorrow.
U.S. officials say they are deeply concerned by a recent government decision in Bahrain to ban all public gatherings. Bahrain's Information Affairs Authority says the ban was needed because of increasing violence that has resulted in death and serious injury. From May to July of this year, there were 91 injuries requiring treatment to members of the police force. Most recently, 2 police officers died as a result of attacks with petrol and homemade bombs. Violent clashes between security forces and opposition protesters have broken out on numerous occasions since February of last year. The protests call for the overthrow of leading figures and the state. U.S. officials are urging the government of Bahrain to uphold its international commitments and allow its citizens to assemble peacefully and express their views without arrest or detention.
A trip to the Pittsburgh Zoo turned into a tragedy when a 2-year-old boy fell into an African dog exhibit and was killed. The boy's mother was attempting to give her son a better view of the exhibit by lifting the child onto a railing. Soon after, the boy lost his balance and fell into the pit. He was immediately attacked by 11 dogs. Authorities say zoo staff and police responded within minutes and were able to draw all but one of the dogs away from the child. The last dog was aggressive and was shot by the police. Onlookers described the attack as horrific and filled with screams for help. It is unclear whether the boy died from the fall or from the attack.
A 21-year-old man is dead following a rollover crash on Highway 53 Sunday night. Eau Claire police say Michael Erickson of Fall Creek overcorrected his SUV after hitting the median and rolled it several times. Emergency crews worked for 15 minutes to extradite him from the vehicle. Erickson was pronounced dead at the scene. The Eau Claire Police Department crash reconstruction team is continuing to investigate the details surrounding the crash.
A Milwaukee man is sentenced to 10 years in prison after being convicted of beating his girlfriend's children and putting one of them in a dryer. 26-year-old Nicholas James Fuchs pleaded no contest on Friday to the 4 felony charges of child abuse and recklessly endangering safety. A 4-year-old child told investigators that, quote, "mean Nick put her in the dryer many times." A criminal complaint also says that Fuchs broke the child's arm and assaulted her brother. The complaint says that Fuchs dunked the 5-year-old's feet in hot water if he wet his pants.
After the break, we will have this week's weather report.
And we'll tell you how an experiment with prosthetic limbs was a major success.
Stay with us. You're watching Update News. Autumn is in full swing, and this week's forecast reflects that. Tonight, we will see mostly cloudy skies with a low of 33 degrees. If you head out to the polls to vote tomorrow morning, you should expect to see showers, which could clear out for afternoon sun and a high of 50. The evening will have partly cloudy skies and a low of 29. Wednesday will be partly cloudy with a high of 45.
Marathon runners took to the streets of New York yesterday to deliver supplies to residents impacted by the storm. Despite the race being canceled, many of the runners decided to run the New York City Marathon route anyway. The race, which has been held every year since 1970, was canceled after Superstorm Sandy devastated New York. Mayor Bloomberg originally had planned to hold the event, saying it would provide a much-needed morale boost to the area. However, after days of intensifying pressure from runners, politicians, and the public, the race was canceled on Friday. Nearly 40,000 participants had already arrived in the city. The nearly 50,000 runners who are expected to compete in Sunday's marathon are guaranteed entry into next year's race and may be compensated for their travel. Stay tuned to see if the Packers were able to continue their winning streak.
And Devin will fill you in with the details of the weekend's NBA games.
Stay with us. You're watching Update News.
The Green Bay Packers extended their winning streak to 4 by beating the Arizona Cardinals yesterday, 31-17. The Packers take their 4-game winning streak into their bye week, which is much needed after losing 3 major players due to injuries during the game. Clay Matthews with an injury to his hamstring, Jordy Nelson with an injured ankle, and Brian Bulaga injured his hip. Aaron Rodgers completed 14 of 30 passes for 218 yards and 4 touchdowns. 2 of the touchdowns going to Randall Cobb, another one going to James Jones, and the 4th going to the birthday boy, Tom Crabtree. With the Packers' longest touchdown of the season, 72 yards. The win improves the Packers' record 6-3. For the second straight week, the Minnesota Vikings suffered a tough loss, losing to the Seattle Seahawks 30-20. Adrian Peterson tore through the Seahawks defense for one of his best career games with 17 carries for 182 yards and 2 touchdowns, but was stuck watching the Seahawks pull away in the 4th quarter. Christian Ponder was 11 of 22 for just 63 yards and was sacked 4 times. This is the second time in the last 3 games that Ponder has failed to throw more than 70 yards. The loss drops the Vikings' record to 5-4. With the Packers win and the Vikings loss, the Packers move ahead of the Vikings to 2nd in the NFC North and 5th in the playoff standings. The Milwaukee Bucks followed up the season opening victory on Friday with another win on Saturday over the Cleveland Cavaliers, 105-102. Shooting guard Mike Dunleavy was a top performer with 29 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. It was a back and forth kind of game until Brandon Jennings had a 3-pointer at the buzzer, winning the game for the Bucks. The Bucks take on the Memphis Grizzlies in Milwaukee at 8 o'clock Wednesday night. The Minnesota Timberwolves are now 1-1 after their win against the Sacramento Kings on Friday and their loss to the Toronto Raptors yesterday. The Timberwolves had a sloppy first half with 16 turnovers, and the Raptors took advantage of their 24 turnovers throughout the game. Shooting guard Brendan Roy gave the ball away with 5 times alone, with Luke Rednauer and Chase Bunninger each having 4. And Andre Kirkoli was a top performer with 17 points, 16 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal, and 3 blocks. The Timberwolves take on the Brooklyn Nets tonight at 7:30 in New York. The Blue Gold's football team fell to UW Whitewater Warhawks on Saturday with the score of 19-10. Joel Sweeney of the Blue Golds rushed for 67 yards, and Desmond Ward led the Warhawks with 137 yards, 1 touchdown. Austin Nye led the Blue Golds in passing yards with 199 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. The loss drops the Blue Golds to 3-3 in conference play and 3-6 overall. The Blue Golds will take on the River Falls Falcons for Senior Day on Saturday. UW Eau Claire women's volleyball won their 5th straight match over nationally ranked Stevens Point. The Blue Golds upset the Pioneers 3-0 in the final match of the WIAC Championships, earning them the title of WIAC champions for the first time in school history. All 3 matches were close in score, but the Blue Golds won all 3. Senior Amy Baumgren led the match with 12 kills, and junior Kelly Shue had 10 kills. Shue also led the Blue Golds in digs with 10, and senior Emily Neve had 37 assists. The Blue Golds are 25-11 going into the NCAA Championship Friday. That's all for sports today. We'll be right back with more news right after the break. Stay tuned. You're watching Update News.
That's all for Update News. Tune in on Friday for more news, weather, and sports.
With Devin Schooneman, Kristen Schill, and the entire Update News team, I'm Dan White. Thanks for watching, and have a good week.